we have with us Brian and Lawrence, and they are senior fellows from the Center for American Progress. इनसे हम बात कर रहे हैं जी. बात हम कर रहे हैं कि they are over here on a listening trip and they want to know the ground realities जी, और किस तरह बेहतर की जा सकती हैं पॉलिसीज़, अमेरिकन पॉलिसीज़ किस तरह बेहतर की जाती हैं, की जा सकती हैं जी. उस ट्रिप पे हैं यहाँ पे and they are meeting people जी. Yeah, this is like another question which I'm going to shoot over here. How can you, we were talking about the trust deficit over here. Trust deficit is there, right? The Americans don't trust the Pakistanis and the Pakistanis don't trust Americans because, as we said, as we had talked earlier also, because you people backed out once the war was over in Afghanistan and so, and the Soviet Union was disintegrated. So now there's another situation. How can you revive that trust when you're doing drone attacks over here, when especially after that, I'll go back over there. Once you were done with the disintegration of Soviet Union and you backed off, the first thing you did was you did like sanctions on Pakistan. 71 is another incident. In 71, you kept telling us that there's going to be like assistance coming in. It never happened. Now there's another situation, the drone attacks, the other things coming up, and the assistance which we are talking about, which you are going to extend, is like, we have talked that phrase so many times, peanuts, you know. So how can that trust deficit be taken care of? You have anything in your mind? Any one of you?
Well, I think while the amount of what we now call the Senator Kerry, Senator Lugar bill, which gives Pakistan aid over 5 years, might be too small, the fact is that it's a long-term commitment, and I think that's the key thing. We can talk about the amount later. But I think if you start small and then you see it's well spent, I think the Congress and the American people will.
Your concern is that each and every dollar which you are sending over here doesn't end up into corruption, right?
Corruption, that's right, or ends up, you know, during the Bush administration, we gave $11 billion to the Musharraf government. Only about $3 billion was for economic aid. The other, you know, 8 or so billion was for military assistance, and many of it did not end up in dealing with the threats like in Swat or FATA. It was, you know, mainly to buy conventional weapons to deal with a different type of threat. Americans, as I mentioned before, are concerned, you know, and we've had terrible abuses in Afghanistan and Pakistan with the aid. I'm not talking about the military, I'm talking about the economic aid. So yeah, we want to see, and I think once we see that it's well spent, it will be comparatively easy to get more. The other thing we need to do is assure the people in this region that we're here for the long haul. And that's why I think it was important for President Obama.
How can you assure the people
well,
that
I think it was, again, actions speak louder than words.
The previous track record doesn't say that.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that's why it was so important for President Obama right away to send more troops to Afghanistan to try and get that situation under control, to try and get the border situation under control. So those troops are going to be in the south, and they're going to be in the east. And I think that was very important because there is a perception that the Democrats are the weak party on defense. And so it was very important for him to you know, to do that right away. And I mean, he has these troops coming in over a period of time. It's not like it's, you know, just going to be one time and not more.
I'm sorry I'm cutting you over here, but then again, I would ask you one thing. During the election campaign, Obama election campaign, Obama had been talking about, you know, taking care of this issue, the core issue, the Kashmir issue. Now when the policy comes in, it's a U-turn. Right. Why?
Well, I think it was wrong, and I think he was right to say it in the campaign, and I think we should not have allowed ourselves to be put in that position by India. I mean, after all, we have just concluded a nuclear arrangement with India, which is very favorable to them. Yeah. So I think what we need...
You can't do that with us, right?
That's right, and I think, again...
And why not?
Well, I think eventually we can if there's assurance, okay? I mean, you see the reports. President Zardari yesterday said, don't worry, the nuclear weapons are under control. There's still some concern about what happened with A.Q. Khan. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why. And I think if we can rebuild that trust, then eventually we can do that. But I think it's important for the United States to show that we are concerned about this issue because it's very important to the people of Pakistan. And I don't know if we can solve it, but if we show we're concerned and we want, to help facilitate it, I think that will help with the trust deficit. But it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, I think it's important to keep in mind this is a long-term, situation.
How much time are we talking over here?
I think we're here for the duration. I don't think we're leaving. I mean, in terms of, we did another report on Afghanistan, and obviously it's going to take a decade to get that situation under control. And the point we try to make in that report is our government has to be honest with the American people. We like quick fixes, go in, get out, get it over with. That's going to take a while, and so I think we need to, to get that message out.
What's your take on this one?
Well, we talked about how quiet diplomacy is only a short-term solution, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I actually think
in the break we were talking about that.
Yeah. Well, but I think that was the implication even in our previous discussion. If that can yield actually a longer-term agreement, if that type of quiet diplomacy that doesn't just get focused on the military issues, that does recognize that Pakistan has some very legitimate threat perceptions when they're talking about India, that talks about also how can we enhance in a very real way economic cooperation, people-to-people contact. All of these things aren't panaceas. They're not going to solve things overnight, but having a long-term plan, and when Larry says to stay here, we're not just talking about military and keeping our troops in Afghanistan. We're talking about going back to the era when not only when Pakistanis were coming to the U.S. in large numbers to study, but when U.S. professors were coming to Pakistani universities on Fulbright grants and other things to meet and to teach and to talk with. We need to, from America, enhance our understanding of Pakistan beyond this is the most dangerous country on the face of the earth and things like this that we get in the in our news media, and really deepen our ties. As a country of 170 million people, we're more than 300 million people. We're terribly important to each other, and the only way I think we can do that is using quiet diplomacy, not only to deal with short-term issues, but to set out a long-term program, a long-term agreement, if you will. We could call it a strategic agreement between our two countries that isn't just about the military, that isn't just about the security situation, but is about actually helping both of our economies flourish.